What we didn't actually understand about the sanctioning system, how are these things affecting each and every one of those people that are living in Africa, and why is the unification of Africa so important in this? If you want to look at how the unification of Africa works, it works in a way that we as a continent, we start working towards the same goal. Because we as independent countries, our goals are not that strong. That's why our systems are not that strong. That's why we don't have a higher level of entrepreneurs in the continent, in a continent where we are supposed to have higher levels of entrepreneurs, because there's so much space and there's so many people that can share that space and that land, and we can become productive of it. It's because of neglection, and that we have been neglecting one another, not just in this easy way, but in so much, in so many ways. If we can learn to come up together with these social systems, let's say the other countries have democracy, the other ones are social systems, and it's socialism. And if you want to say, okay, we need to bring these two countries together, you understand that it's going to be difficult, because the democratic country will not go along with the social system, with the socialism system. Why? Not because the people do not want to unite, or the people do not want to work towards the same goal. We have seen that happening many times. We have seen people that were in Hong Kong during this protest that was happening. Was it last year? They went on and actually demanded to say we all need answers. And you go along with that, you go back to years and years of wars, and the reason why there are so many protests that are happening around the world is because we have the sentiment of this revolt. But if we are working from the point of revolt, we are always going to be on the other side of the token. Why? Because if we are in a position where we are saying we are the ones who are fighting, then we are not going to be able to be the ones who are defending. Why? Because if there are these people who have a mentality that they are defending, if you are defending, some simply means someone is on the offending side. And we cannot be on the offending side, because the defending side will make sure that they have a strong system that is capable of defeating any offending side. Let me put it this in easy ways. Remember when you were in school, or if you did go to school, that there's this kid who's smart, right? And if you are not that smart, you go along with the kid who's smart, you play along with the kid who's smart, or you try by all means to see how the kid who's smart is doing it. And once you know how the kid who's smart is doing it, and then you take your style with his and you put them together and you see if it can work out and you can come up with something. That is for most people. So if this kid who's doing well for mostly in school, you start seeing how he's doing well, and you yourself, you start doing well because you know this guy is the one who is around and he's always doing well, then you get to understand, you get to build yourself from that. But if you despise the kid who's doing well and yet you are not doing well, you do not learn. Or neither if you worship the kid who's doing well, because he is always going to end up using you, because he knows you love this and you like my style, so you follow me in whatever. So you have to stay in your position and say, no, if I am going to learn, it's not going to be easy to learn. And if it's going to be easy to learn, then everyone around us will be graduates. They would have, wow, existed and actually have found the cure for coronavirus. But if you want to understand, since we are not all these, then we have to work around a position that we put ourselves and say, this is a better position for us to work towards rebuilding nations and making the Africa that we all want to live in. Today, that we have so much disasters that are going on, rethink about the idea of the unification of Africa, because none of our economies in the entire continent can say we are taking a step and say we have this under control. So much that most countries in Africa have been affected, just like the Latin American countries. And if you want to check Ecuador, its numbers and the way that the victims in Ecuador are dying, it's not good. So those people that are affected, look, they are the poor ones. They are always the poor ones. And those that are rich, the ones that are controlling the social system, the social systems, and the ones that want these social systems in control, uh, and those that actually didn't get to the position that they are in. Honestly, they had to corrupt, they had to do something that you have to ask yourself twice before you do it, because you might lose your soul in the process. These are the most people that are there, right? And not to generalize all rich people or to generalize all poor people. Then those that are the poor, they always seek to say, we want to fight against this system. And those that are always on top, they will go into a point of defending to say, we are defending this because this is the way that we have been living up to this point. That's why we are always going to have these systems that today we are fighting, and we're trying to say, if we are going to unify Africa, then if we are fighting against one another because we have different social systems, then the sanctioning system, you have to understand it from maybe the biblical perspective will be rather better. Because if you want to check in the biblical perspective, they used to say that they're still saying that, and today it has become more powerful. These teachings are being taught everywhere. When they say the number of the beast, you can only buy or sell with the number of beasts. Now look at the social the sanctioning system, how it works. If you can only buy or sell, and then there's this system that is a policy where they can tell you that you cannot buy or sell. Already the number of the beast exists already. This is the number of the beast where men cannot buy or sell unless you go along with an ideology, unless you go along with the system. This is what they have been preaching all this time, but no matter how much we try to put it to today's word, we're still going to find ourselves in a difficult position where we have to doubt these, maybe because not all of us are religious, or not most of us understand the way of faith the way that some of us does. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't become a conflict on what is on point right now and what we need to do in order for the next generation to be in a better position that we were in previously, in the previous decade, right now and the future. Because the future right now is uncertain with everything that is happening around the world. Do we have a possibility that we can actually conquer our own demons, where we are coming from, our own struggles in terms of our own divisions and our own ideologies? Because once our ideologies have become so much different, it is going to be difficult for entrepreneurs to rise. Because if we are living in a new Africa where there is so much uh, building that is happening, everyone is building. So if everyone is building, those that are not building, they help others to build. And those that are helping others to build, they do not have the chance to go and build their own dreams. So it's not meant for everyone. It's okay. And not everyone can do it the best as others. And there is also competition in that. Not everyone can do it. But what I'm saying is, it is rather better to create an environment that all these things are possible. You have to choose it for yourself, not that the system chooses for you, or the environment or what is happening around us chooses the conditions that you should live in and the conditions that you should be in. So if we actually do not unify the entire Africa, we're always going to have these debates. Like if the other country is under sanctions or the other country is not, and that country that is under sanctions, right, goes to the country that is not, for they are looking for support. So when they go to that country, they are not going to be well favored. It's obvious no one favors the other side, especially if you're in a position where most of the taxes that is coming out of your pocket goes to that other side. This is a two-way side, but also there's a human side to it. There's a human side to it, and that human side is the side that we are saying let's bring in, especially here in the continent. And once we can work around that, then we can learn to understand there is no difference in terms of human bodies being one from one to another. Or what is different is the way we think, the mentality. And if the mentality is different, then you get to understand we are always going to have these differences. And these differences shouldn't bring us into a jeopardy where we end up fighting against one another. This is what is happening, which is why the push towards the unification of Africa is not personal. rather you can say it's business. Because most people, if you want to take it personal because you have this thing, these things will always exist. We will always have our own differences as human beings. The hate among us human beings will always exist. Why? Because until the evils that of this world are taken away, then we can say we are totally free from that. But because we are still in positions where we are capable of making decisions, these decisions we must make them while we still can. And this is a moment where we say there is a possibility where we can do it better. Let's do it rather now than ever. Because there is no other time. Look, in 1963, when all these African leaders that were available came into a position where they were discussing about how they can bring about the unification of Africa. It was in 1963 when they were supposed to do it. Now it has affected, let's say, young generations that are trying to be independent in terms of thinking. It has affected the older generation because they are now working harder. They don't retire early. They are overworking themselves instead of actually raising grandkids and teaching the next generation what to expect in their generation and what to keep in the culture and everything that comes with it. There's nothing wrong to have a strong culture and the strong culture that is positive, but it is wrong when that tradition is causing people to divide, and the divisions that these traditions have been and have brought, they will always exist among us as human beings because that's who we are. We identify with one another. We find something we identify with, and once we have found something we identify with, we try by all means to protect it. And that is most of the things that we have been trying to protect since today. We are still in that war. But now we put arms aside and say we have to find a way to work together because there is no other continent in the world with so much effort and potential with exactly the population that is required to make that possible, like here in like mostly in Africa. And if we can bring that, you do not need to go around creating enemies and talking about what you don't have or what others do not have because it is none of your business. Once you learn to mind your own business, then you understand this is what your business is. And mostly, if you don't get to manage it and if you do not want to manage it, and you say, no, I ignore this thing, we ignore this idea, we ignore how we can bring about people together. No, it's not good. We are not supposed to do it, and you have your own reasons. It is okay to have to have your own reasons, to be strongly opinionated about what you think you know is the truth. But sometimes it's not always good for us personally because it sometimes puts you in a position that you don't want to be because you refuse to take the fact that you might have there is potentially that you are wrong. And mostly, if we go through this stage, we will understand only the consequences. But before that, we have to understand this. This is the part that is important. Mostly, even if countries go are on lockdowns and they are trying by all means to save their own people, to save their economies, they are working around the clock, right? If you want to check that, that is not good enough. That is not good enough because they might not have enough resources to do this. Because sometimes we spend much time fighting than actually trying to understand because it is hard to understand with our own opinions, like the opinions that we have had in the world to this day. And if we keep on having this experience and living up to this experience, it will affect us one way or the other. Maybe today it might not be you that is affected, but tomorrow definitely it's someone. Maybe today it's not your son that is being taken by the Boko Haram, but next time it's gonna be your uncle who's going to be in that position. So if you learn to ignore, that's why you say if you ignore a thief, next time he's gonna steal from you. And if you ignore him today because he's stealing from someone else and you say it's none of your business, and of course, to some extent, it might not be none of your business, but when you do that, you are not saving anyone else, you are not even saving yourself. You're putting yourself on a cross because you never know what will happen next. Because what is happening today in the world is that all these sanctioning systems and the reason why we create immigrants and we create poverty more than we say we are ending poverty, because how can you end poverty by creating it? What is the substitute for creating poverty? Why are you creating poverty? And once we have created poverty, those that are poor will not be able to have this idea clearly, because they do not have the chances to learn about what is right, because they are not exposed to so much information after all, because information is expensive in today's world. And that only should only not matter to us, but to everyone who's around us. That's why we should work on not only on what benefits us, but that which benefits many people. Look, if we can convert the continent of Africa into what we think we are capable of converting it into, remember, we can actually help the Middle East to stop the wars and bring about even some of their citizens that need help here. We shouldn't be selfish in order to help humanity. We must work with one goal, which is the goal to actually be more than what we are or what we have been told or what we are not. Because we can become something that we wish to be if we fight to have it. But the fights have stopped. Now we should change the way we fight. We have to use our minds more than we use our energy to go out there and protest for something that we can actually go and sit down and say, how can we make this right so that we won't have to come back and protest again? How can we make this right so that we won't have to come and fight against each other whenever we see each other? We have to come to that point, and that point is now. And it is now in time where you get to understand, learn to be open-minded about how we can work around when we are working together instead of against each other, because the rest of the world will always fight against each other. This is the reason why we have been given different lands, so that we cannot fight against one another. The reason why we have been given different lands where to stay and where to exist, and why we choose them, is because those are the places that we feel safe most, because those are the places that we call our homes. So if those places are what we call our homes, and this place is what we call our home, then you have to understand, if these two places are homes, then if we lose it, then what else are we going to do? Where are we going to go the day that we say, I'm going home? Because we are so much focused into going forward, into going around, or into changing the world, but home is not good for any of us, because no one wants to go back home and actually say, let's rebuild, let's see how we can do it, because there's so much negative energy and it has drained away most people's energy, and we should work around that. We should find a way to help one another beyond what we know, because if we actually do not have so many doctors that are needed to treat African people, then we're always going to have problems in the next generation. They will not have enough doctors, because those doctors, if they are needed today, then we should work around the clock to get those doctors here today, to get those engineers here today, to get those businesses of entrepreneurs started, not to make those that do not have feel even worse. Because if they feel even worse, some will even feel better because they benefit from that. That's how the world has been. That's how Earth works. Each and every day around the clock, there's something wicked that is happening around the world. These people should not only focus on digging out these minerals, because it doesn't help if they do not know what these minerals are for. Because they have to know what are these minerals for. And once these minerals are known what they actually make, what is this thing that you are using every day? Do you know what is in your phone? How your phone was made? Do you know which components were used in your phone? You are right standing above them. And once we learn to get to to that position where we want to be curious about how everything was made and is made, then we are likely to make it for ourselves, and we might actually go to a position where we stop importing what is not necessary to the people or to the community, because it is the community that imports a lot, because it is the community that need those things. If we can be able to go into a position like we can utilize ourselves and put ourselves in a position where we are not focusing on the social systems that we are using, because in Africa today you find autocratic leadership, you find democracy, you find a socialist, a communist. You find all these certain people. No, maybe we can work around together without actually us having these ideologies come between us and fight us. We have solutions and we have so much diversity that to work around it, we are going to have enough people who can go out and manage many businesses as they can. They can go out there and we know that this has been well taken care of. This has been well taken care of. And only after until that we have to keep on working towards that. Which is why hard work is mandatory. Not having something to do is actually a disease, you might as well call it. Saying, I do not have something to do, literally, I do not have something to do, especially when others are on a lockdown or especially this lockdown, others will keep on saying, I do not have something else to do, otherwise to go to work. You have to be open to what is actually has been missing in your own life. And when you focus on that, you can be able to help those that are around you. It's not going to be easy. No one ever said it will. And it was never easy. Even for those that lived before us and those that will live after us, it was never going to be easy. It will never be easy. So if we will not quit now and keep on working towards achieving this great mentality in a society, this logical thinking that we are not only for ourselves but for others as well. And we should not forget that we ourselves, we should be there for ourselves as well. Because if you do not learn to communicate with yourself, it's another problem. How can you like communicating with yourself and yet being able to communicate with others? Once you learn to miscommunicate with yourself, then you are going to have a miscommunication with others, a point where we do not communicate with one another. We are just waking up, living there until we die, waking up, living until we die. There is no communication. The impact of communication is missing. And once the impact of communication is missing, then you know the end of the day that nothing will come out of it. No one will benefit from it. So pushing the idea of the unification of Africa will not only help in terms of saying, let's say, no country in Africa will be able to receive sanctions on a separate plate. To say Africa is going to be sanctioned by this country, and you go and the only sanction people that are in Libya, or people that are in Nigeria, or people that are in Ethiopia or Gambia or whatever country that they are in. Right, they are not only going to be doing that, but to the entire continent. Now the value has increased. So once the value has increased, now we know that we are going to work around achieving what can help each and every one of us. Because now there's so much neglection of saying, I'm doing well, but countries here are not always going to be doing well when they are independent, especially in a continent like ours. Because in a continent of ours, there is so much miseducation, mis-sovereignty, and false nationality. Because nationality is something that we have made for the past 60 years, isn't it? And even race came before that. Being identified with the race, just being identified with the race made you belong to some sort of a nationality. You see, that is something that we should get rid of and know that if two stomachs are hungry, they will always try to feed. But remember, when two stomachs are hungry, instead of working together, they'll fight one another for what might not even be there. They'll even fight for peanuts. And when you give them a plate of food, they will thank you, but at the end of the day, they will still feel this thing in them. They will fight against one another just to share that half plate, while not knowing that why don't they ask where the food is came from and if they can actually do something that they can have it tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Because such blessings are not given to everyone. And someone will come and ask and they, okay, Craig, tell me, is there any chance that if we unite Africa, right, we might actually increase corruption and all these diseases that are around? Even if we don't unite, what is going to stop more corruption? What is going to stop more terrorism? Terrorism is increasing because more portals are being left open and there's so much neglection. And that increases, and as it increases, it's not going to affect only, maybe I will not be affected. Maybe I will even die early. Maybe I will not be affected by that. Maybe you will not be affected by that. Maybe we will die before the effects even come into play. Maybe Christ will come back before the effects even come into play. But what we are saying is that even if we say Christ is coming tomorrow, it doesn't mean we shouldn't grow an apple tree today, seed our farms. We shouldn't stop working towards unity, towards love, and to destroy division. Because division, once it has become a hold of you, is going to abuse you and leave you in a position that you don't want to be in. And when you are in that position now, you are asking yourself all these questions if you are suitable to be in that position that you are in. Maybe you might not be, maybe you might be. But at the end of the day, once you start asking yourself such questions pertaining to your own faith, then you are going to have these doubts. So these doubts will give you this fear. So that fear of change will then give you that question of saying, what if we do this? Isn't it going to increase more violence? Isn't it going to increase more wars? Yeah, it might be. But at the end of the day, we working together, how can it increase when we are actually able to fight all these things away? Because what we need by the unification of Africa is to actually destroy the division. Unless you were created by the other God besides my own, then you are totally different from me in terms of not just the way you think. Because now it's no longer about the way you think. So now today, look at, no matter who you are around the world, there is this impact of coronavirus where no matter who you are, it's gonna affect you. You do not have this certain cool blood where you say, I'm so cool, I cannot have it. It's also going to affect you. Now that brings us to one position, to one place of mind, to one place of thought. And it's not a peace of mind. It simply means whatever we do here, we are interconnected. So if we have to work together, it's not like it's a decision that you go home and say, I'll think about it. It's something that if it is required of you immediately, you become a subject to it. Why? Because if we do not work around the clock to say, how can we help ourselves, waiting for someone to come and help us, then you always be in a position where you have to cry for mercy. And it's not easy when you are crying for mercy to someone else, and when you are hoping that someone else will come and save you. Because our relationship with the world, with the rest of the world, has been different experiences. And it is those experiences that influence our ideas. So the reason why we should become who we are and what we are supposed to be is because if we do not become that, what else are we going to become? Because if we are not that, what else are we going to become? That will affect us because you start going around grabbing whatever tradition or culture that you think is yours or it suits you, which is affecting mostly those that are growing up into the next generation, because today they do not have that education where they say, I am who I am, I know who I am, and I know who I am supposed to be today. They do not have that. And mostly those that know that they do not have that, and those that are supposed to inspire them and tell them the reason why they should have that, they are standing backwards and just watching them and say, you are not doing it right. Then show me how to do it right. Don't just tell me you are not doing it right. Show me how to do it right. And if you see me doing it otherwise after you have showed me the way, then the problem is not your teachings. The problem is me, because I am the ignorant one. A fool is the one who doesn't listen. And whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but who hates correction is stupid. And that dynamics will always work upon us and will always have this impact on us. The way we think, the way we speak, the way we share our ideas. And that only is the reason why we are in this position that we are in today in this world. Where even if we say we want to go on lockdown, how is everyone going to be able to avoid it? Some countries are in dust, like there's so much poverty. Young kids are there, just they don't have anything else to do. The youth is always around the corners, and you blame them for being around the corners. Sometimes, yes, it might be their fault, but how is it not your fault as well? And the way you just fire yourself out of it shows that you yourself believe that you are different from the other person, and you have every reason to. But at the end of the day, does that make you better? If that makes you better, great. But if it doesn't, it's gonna eat your soul away a bit by bit. And by the time that you open your eyes to the truth, you'll be like, I wasted time. Have you ever heard people saying that I wasted time on this? I, they told me I wasted time. And that is the time that we are wasting today in Africa while delaying the unification of Africa. Because once other countries have become so much powerful by betraying other countries, like how we have seen the crisis that is happening in the Middle East, and it is as well affecting many African countries because this is the neighboring continent, that will always have the effect on us. And if we can come up with solutions that can not only help us and help those that are around the world, then we are doomed to that failure as well. We should come up with plans that will help us so that we can help everyone else. Don't you feel better when you are in a position where you are the one who's helping someone? Doesn't that make you happy? But when you are in a position where you are the lesser one, yes, you're going to be excited. You're going to be very, very excited to receive. But the one who is more blessed is the one that who gives. And once you work around with the mentality that you are the one who's supposed to go and give, not to expect someone to give out there, then you are the one who is actually more affected than all of us. Your enemy is not someone of a different color, someone of a different religion, someone of a different tongue, someone of a different tribe. Your only enemy is someone you look into the mirror, right there into the mirror. This is the person who stops everything from happening into your life. That person. And if he stands up to that person who he looks it into the mirror, you first conquer yourself before you try to conquer others. Or you first be reasonable with yourself before you try to reason on others. Because how many people have you faced that they have a higher reasoning capacity, but yet they are not very, very, very reasonable? This is how it has been, and it will, unless we learn to work together.